Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Daniel Marsh, and I'm one of the sales engineers for Zyzel UK. I typically look after the north, and my counterpart, Nigel Canning, he looks after the south. Today, I'm joined by David Johnson, who's going to be monitoring both the questions and the chat section of the webinar. So during this element, it's going to be quite an open forum. So I'm going to be going through Nebula, doing a live demo. If you've got any questions or any chat, then David's going to be on hand to answer them for you. So David, if you just want to introduce yourself.
Hello, yeah, I'm here to assist. So any questions that you send into either forum, I will reply. Preferably send them to the entire audience, just in case anybody else happens to have the same question, and I'll reply to the entire audience so they can see the answer.
Perfect, thank you ever so much, David. Right, so as I say, today I'm going to be going through the Nebula platform, specifically around some of the MSP features we have. So we are running like a bit of a campaign and a bit of a journey to sort of help our resellers move more into the managed service space. A lot of you might already be doing it and not actually realizing that you are. So we're sort of here to help educate and help enhance your experience in them sort of areas. So if you sort of cast your memory back historically, if you've been managing customers in the past, to access the equipment, it can be quite difficult using multiple web browsers, logging onto devices using their IP address or domain names. It can become very complex and very difficult to manage. So what Zyzel have spent a lot of time investing in both developing both the hardware and the software element is creating our Nebula platform, which some of you may or may not already be using. So to be able to get onto it, you can just go to nebula.zyzel.com and it'll bring you up with a screen like this. There is an experience live demo that you can use by using these credentials. You can log in and get a feel for it yourself. Otherwise, you can sign up at the bottom and register an account just like I have. So when you come to actually log into the actual platform, there's two elements to it. There's the control center, which is typically for all your switching, your access points and your security gateways. And then we've got the SD-WAN, which is like a replacement for the MPLS service, which we will be covering at some point during this year in a bit more detail. So Nebula Control Center is where we're looking at. Specifically, that is aimed towards the MSP side of our business. So once you log in, by default, you're going to be provided with a list of companies. If you've only got one, then it'll log you straight into it. But if you've been given administrative rights or you've created multiple organizations, these will be listed here. So I'm going to start off showing you the Msp Portal. So the Msp Portal is a way that you can manage it. Because of how Nebula is designed and how it needs to be designed for the MSP, it's a multi-tier level. So you've got an organization, and then underneath your organizations, you can also have multiple sites. So this is a way where you can manage all of your customers in one place without having to have multiple web browsers open, without having a complex CRM system to be able to log into the devices. It shows you everything here. So you'll see here, I've got multiple organizations listed. It shows me what type of license I've got. So whether or not it's Nebula free or the Pro Pack, which can be done annually, or you'll see that one of them actually has a limited lifetime license. So this is where they've actually paid, where they don't have any renewal. It is free. It is licensed indefinitely, as long as obviously you don't increase the amount of devices you've got, because the license is done per device. This will give you the license status and then the expiration if it's applicable. It'll tell you how many sites are linked to that organization, and then it'll give you a full count of how many online devices you've got, any alerted devices and any offline devices, and then it breaks it down and gives you the individual device itself. So here is a really good representation of being able to look at all your clients in one single place and see, one, if they've got any offline devices. Like you'll see here, this is actually my home. You'll see that I've got one device currently offline because it's been decommissioned. But then you can visually see straight away if any sites need any attention. So with that being said, if for instance licenses have been expired or something like that, you've got the ability to actually transfer the license as well. So this is only if you're an owner. So if you've been given administrative rights from another company, for instance, you won't be able to do a license transfer. However, I can do it on the one that I created myself. So if, for instance, you take over a customer and they've already got a Nebula set up and you're already familiar with Nebula, then all you do is you ask them, whoever's administrating it at the time, go, look, can we have access to it? They can provide you administrative access straight away, and then it'll pop up on your list of organizations. So you can do a license transfer on both the NCC and the NSS, and the NSS is specifically for the security gateway, so that gives you things like antivirus and IDP. And that's pretty much straightforward on how to use that. The Msp branding is quite good because what you can do is you can actually upload a logo, so you can sort of white label it so that when people do log in, then they will actually see your company logo. So in the top left-hand corner, you'll see where it says Nebula Control Center. So once I've actually applied it, and if I click OK and save on that, you'll see it will actually change the logo. So you can put your own company logo on there and ultimately white label it to yourself. There is a support contact on here, so you can show the default support cases, and you can specifically, when it's turned off, it will only show support cases which have been raised for organization owners or organization full privileged users. So this would be somebody in your industry, not potentially an administrator at your customers. And then you can put in like a bespoke message as well on the thingy. So if you've got any problems, you can contact myself for assistance. You can provide details on there. And I'll show you where this is shown in a few moments. And then you can actually, the Msp branding, you can specify what to apply it to. So do we apply it to all current and new pro organizations when I create it? Or do we not, don't we want to apply it to any, or custom, you get to select it. So as I said, this support contact here, if you go to help, and then support requests, you and your customers have the ability to raise a support request straight away with our Nebula support team. By clicking on this radio button, it will allow straight away for Zyzel support to be given administrative access so they can have a look at it in the background. And then you can see that you can have a look at your closed cases and you can create a new open case as well. So being able to offer you that decent level of support and aftercare as well. So subject, if you want anyone copying into it, what device is it relating to as well? So is it the actual platform, or is it the individual devices you've got? And then you can specify the priority, and you can also get the definition of that priority as well. So again, it's all about being able to offer a good level of service to our end users and to make your lives as an MSP as easy as possible. So one pane of glass to manage all of your customers' needs. None of these complex changes, none of these complex ways to get the information that you need. And you'll see here my bespoke message up here is what's displayed. So that really covers the Msp Portal, the organization's license transfer, and then the Msp branding that you can do. Now, one of the other important things, especially for an MSP, is making sure you know what kit you've got out there. So to do, I mean, everything is recorded within Nebula because you register the devices, you get them added, and then you can actually have a look at the inventory. So organization-wide inventory, if you click on this, it will give you a breakdown of everything that you've got for your owned site. So you'll see I've got quite a lot of sites listed and quite a lot of devices I showed you on the first page. However, these are the ones which I am an owner of. So you'll see here I've got 4 devices online, the GS1350, which has recently joined the Nebula family as well as of about 3 days ago. And you can see all the MAC addresses, and you can actually go to them devices straight from here as well just by clicking on it. So you'll see it'll just take you straight through to the actual switch that you've clicked on, and it'll allow you to diagnose it or even get further information on that. As you can see here, one of the good things I do like as well, that if you're managing the customer and say they ring up with a problem, you can actually import a map. So you can put a floor map here and actually pinpoint where the switch is physically located. So you'll see here, I've actually pinpointed mine strictly down to my house where I've got my switches and things like that. But then you can also add a photo. So when it comes to access points, for instance, you could take a photo of where it's physically placed, whether it be inside a ceiling tile or whatever. And then if you're trying to guide the customer to where it is, you've got everything there to explain to them where it is. So it really cuts down the amount of administration time that's required, especially if whoever installed it is no longer with the company. So as I say, you've got full asset management. You know exactly what you've got out there on site. You know exactly which devices are actually online, whether or not there's a firmware mismatch and it needs upgrading, any configuration changes that need to be done. Everything's located on here. Okay, again, for MSPs, being able to roll out the solution as simply as possible is also key. So some of the things that we've implemented is what's called the configuration management and a configuration template. So on the configuration management, which is a Pro Pack feature, so you won't be able to access it if you only use the free version. You can get specific site-wide settings, SSIDs, and then you can synchronize them from one site to another site. You can also clone your switches, so you can clone like any of your switches that you've got configured and push them settings out to another switch. Potentially, it could be a replacement switch that you're looking at implementing, or even an additional switch that should be set up the same. We've got a backup and a restore function. So this isn't a backup where you can back it up and save it locally. It's basically a snapshot. It'll save it on the Nebula platform. And then if you do have any issues, you can just sort of restore that. And again, with the switches as well. So again, being able to offer you that sort of disaster recovery of the worst case scenarios and simple migration and implementation of the devices. So the configuration templates, I quite like these. So you can actually create a template which is linked to a specific site. So this template is from my home. So any settings I change on my home will update this template. And if I bind any additional sites to this, so if I created another site, test home, and bound it to this template, anything I change on the home will actually also change on the test home one as well, which means if you've got multiple sites, if say you've got a branch or a franchise all around the UK and they're pretty much all configured exactly the same, you could actually have them all binded to one template. You change one site, one SSID, it'll change it across the board. So you could change 30 SSIDs in a matter of minutes with hardly any technical knowledge required, and sort of roll it out. So again, making things a lot easier for you guys so that you can concentrate on further projects, new customers and prospects. So if we go back from here, go back into the configuration templates. Right. So yeah, you can pretty much just tick create, delete, and you can obviously have multiple templates as well. So if you've got any questions and need it showing how that actually works, you can always catch me, and I can always do a one-to-one demonstration as well. So like any system, if any changes are made, you want to know what's happened, you want to know who's accountable for it. So you can add multiple administrators inside your company. So if you do a generic support app and you've got 5 people using that email address, you're not going to know which individual made what changes at what time. Whereas if you do individual email addresses like daniel.marsh@zeisel.uk, etc., then you can do a full sort of change log request so that you can actually see exactly who's changed what. So you will see here that obviously I'm the only user, so I make certain changes. It actually tells you what the old value was, what the new value was. So if you know something stopped working at a specific timestamp and date, then you can have a look, right, what was changed? Right, it was so-and-so who changed this. Go and find out why they changed it. It might have been a request from the customer. Come in here and go, right, he changed it from an empty value to a true value and that stopped working, or even the VLAN assignments. So again, changelog is very important to make sure that any issues do arise, you can quickly revert them back to what there was in a working state. And if you backed it up, then you can always just run the restore and that will bring them back online anyway. So the organization view as a whole, everything has a sort of like a change log. So you'll see you've got summary reports for the sites so that you can see the data and things like that. One of the really good features I like for the Pro Pack is the Network Topology Map. So when you've got a full Nebula system, I unfortunately don't have a gateway. I'm using an ATP currently. But you'll see that it'll show you what switches I've got with what access point. So I've got a CCTV switch, which runs all my Hikvision CCTV. I've got a home access point. And if you actually click on it, it tells you it's online by it being green. If you click on it, it'll give you the status, it'll give you the model, how many clients are connected, and what remote port it is in. So if that was red, I could go onto that and I could click on it and I could go, right, I've got an access point which is plugged into port 4 on a switch, which is offline. So I then step back through the topology and go, right, it's plugged into this switch, got 23 clients on, let's go to this switch and find out what's wrong with port 4. And then you can go down, right, okay, port 4's on, whatever, it's connected. So you can start diagnosing it at this point. You've got the live tools, so you've got the ping, you've got the port power cycle, the MAC table, you can reboot the switch and a locator LED in case you've got someone on site and they need to locate it within a cabinet. And then it'll also show you all your uplink statuses as well, either at a certain time period as well. You can go up to 30 days with a Pro Pack, but only 7 days rolling with a free version. And it shows you all the information such as the power consumption as well. So again, being able to give you that visual representation of what the network is doing, any potential issues, any firmware which isn't up to date, any configurations which haven't been pushed out. One important thing is, what is my PoE consumption? Do I need to get another switch to manage any additional access points I need to put on? All this information is available all within Nebula, all within a single pane of glass. You can specify certain addresses, descriptions, and again, just making your life a lot easier. So yeah, you've got the change logs, being able to drill down into the individual switches to be able to diagnose it. And then you've also got one real good thing is trying to resolve any potential issues before the customer reports them. So one of the biggest issues that you're ever going to have in a network is wireless congestion, frequency issues, and potential clients pulling your network down. So again, another pro feature we've got is the wireless health. Now this will actually monitor your access points and the clients that are connected to all your access points, and it will report of any potential degradation in service. And this isn't based on signal level, it's based on retry rates. So it's actually having a look to see are the clients suffering. So you'll see here my home access points had a few little issues, but nothing massive, because obviously I've got a few people in the area with similar sort of routers on the same channel. But when you get down to my clients, you can actually see that there's quite a lot of orange, which is suggesting that my Chromecast has been suffering a bit of a fair connection. So it has been recently relocated in the house as well. So if I just sort of go to like the last 30 days, which it does take a little bit of a while just to compile all of the logs, you'll see that one of my other devices has suffered even worse than that. And this is because I move it around. So you'll see here I've got red ones, which is my Alexa. So this is when it's nice weather, take it out in the garden, not so much of a strong signal, so it reports that. And it's just good to see what the wireless clients are doing, because it means that there's potentially an issue somewhere that you need to address before it starts becoming that bad that the customer starts jumping on it. So it's really good, and it can also do automatic optimization, and it can also do dynamic channel selection, and it can also change the channel width as well to try and reduce any potential interference that it could cause. You just need to bear in mind that if you do set it to be able to do this, that if it does suffer an issue, it's going to make changes. So you might notice a little bit of a drop and things like that. So some people want it on, some people don't, but the facility is available there for you. So that probably covers about that side of things. There's some really nice features as well, because there's a new update came out on the 30th. As I say, some of the features that they've got are really good. So one thing that we've got is what's called dynamic VLANing. So dynamic VLAN ultimately means that you can have one SSID set up with just a generic VLAN 1, for instance, and then you can specify username and password to a customer, either using Radius, or you can use what's on the screen now, the cloud authentication. So you will see here I've created 2 users, Daniel @ and then a billing @, both with different usernames and both with different VLAN assignment as well. So if I log on with this username and password, which it'll actually pop up when I go to the wireless connections, instead of just asking for a password, it'll ask for a username and a password. It will drop me into VLAN 99. And if I put in the Danny username, then it will stick me onto VLAN 1. This is really good because it's never recommended to have any more than 3 broadcasted SSIDs because you start causing your own interference, too much broadcast, and it can start causing issues. So with dynamic VLANing, you can actually reduce this and have one SSID, and I'll use it in the context of, say, a managed business. So you've got one building which has 20 businesses in it, and one IT company looks after the lot. You have one SSID, which is for the building, and each business, so you'll create 20 users, each business has their own username and SSID with different VLAN assignments. They can go anywhere in that building, whether they relocate office, whether they're sat in the canteen, whether they're sat in a conference room. They can log on with their normal username and password and still access all of their network requirements. So if they've got any servers in their office, they'll be able to access it from the other side of the building using the one wireless name that's been broadcasted. That's one example. The other example, for instance, would be a school. So you'd broadcast one SSID throughout. You'd have students with their own username and password. You'd have teachers with their own username and passwords. You'll have admin staff with their own username and passwords. Again, they can go anywhere in that school and they will be able to access all of their resources, what they're allowed to. If there's multiple schools and they're all set up the same, so you've got one SSID which is broadcasted over several physical schools, and the teachers might teach at one school and then another school, all the information is exactly the same. So they could actually go to the other school, log on as they would do at any other school, and it would just work. So again, it's reducing the amount of broadcast noise and interference that potentially it could cause, and also giving you that flexibility and that easier management, not having to manage so many SSIDs, having to manage so many passwords, etc. And again, this does hook into Radius. So if you've got something existing already, we can just hook straight into it and they can continue to use it. So that's the dynamic VLAN, which has recently been introduced. And in an extension to that, we've now got the dynamic personal pre-shared key. Now this literally has just been released, which this is really good because you can actually add, and you can either add a single one or you can add a batch. So you can add a batch of up to 20 on a specific VLAN, and then an email address that you want the information to go to. So for instance, I use mine. So I created these this morning, created 10, all of which have got an actual different password automatically generated by the Nebula system. And you'll see I've put them all on VLAN 99. The good thing is about this is when you actually click it, you've got the ability to print. And what this will do is it'll actually produce you with a printout of the password and any specific expiry that you've put in there. And basically, you cut around them, get a guillotine on them, and then if somebody wants Wi-Fi, you hand it out to them, they use it, it expires at a certain point. And then you've got the flexibility to manage this as well. So this comes in handy, especially for pubs, restaurants, and things like that. You might want to be able to track what certain users are doing. So by creating a dynamic user, you'll be able to see this because obviously they're all unique to that individual. So again, being able to make sure they're going on what they're supposed to and they're not trying to hinder your network in any way, shape, or form. So there's some of the couple of new features which have been added, which I think are really beneficial, especially for MSPs and the ease of management of things. And another couple of settings I just want to sort of touch on sort of vendor-based MAC addressing and voice VLAN. So any of you that have used Nebula in the past will know that there's a voice VLAN feature within inside Nebula, and it means that you can actually put on specifically the first 6 octets of a MAC address, which is unique to the vendor. So whether that be Polycom, whether it be SNOM, whether it be Yealink. So whenever a Yealink device is plugged into the switch, it's going to specifically get put on a certain VLAN. I can't unfortunately use this because I haven't got a switch which actually supports at the moment. So the option is switched off for me. But basically, you can specify a Yealink and a Polycom device to get dropped into a specific VLAN. But you can only do that for one VLAN when it comes to voice VLAN. Vendor ID based, so if, say for instance, a school, they have many iPads, the Apple MAC address is going to be present on them iPads. You could specify the Apple MAC address in there so that any iPads get dropped onto a specific VLAN which have certain security policies provided to them. So obviously content filtering, a bit like a bring your own device sort of thing. So you can drop them into a specific VLAN as well and have them inherit a certain specific policy. So it's a very good feature and it helps you control your network and make sure only certain devices go on certain VLANs as well. So being able to really drill down and offer you that sort of flexibility. So again, Nebula Platform has got literally everything you need. It's got access to be able to sort out all your authentication on your access points, your SSID availability. You can manage all your switching. You've got IGMP, so you can do IP television for instance, sports bars. We've recently added our CCTV switching into it as well, so surveillance. So being able to squeeze 250 meter out of PoE on some of the switches and things like that. Again, it's got everything that you need in here, and we're constantly developing it. We do take feedback from customers as well for certain features and requests that would be beneficial to the platform as well. So I mean, if you've got any questions, if you need me to show you anything, then now I would probably say is the right sort of time to do it. So I'll keep it open for a few minutes. I can see there's been a couple of questions that I believe David's already dealt with. If in regards to the release note polls that you're looking for the NCC, if you've already got Nebula registered, you should receive an email when a scheduled update is due, obviously to preempt you and tell you about it, but it should also tell you the specific features that are going to be added onto it as well. So I've been obviously keen for the update that came out beginning of this week. I got an email through twice actually, because I've got 2 accounts registered to it, and it told me all the features that was being added. So then I could go in once it had done, and I could actually have a look, read through, and then as soon as I've done it, I can log onto the unit once it's upgraded and test them specific features like I have done. So David, in regards to yours, so under the Msp Portal, how do you remove an organization? So obviously, you can only remove an organization that you are an owner of. If you've been made administrator of it, then they will have to physically remove you from being an administrator, or you can go into administrator. So for instance, so if I go to this one here, I'm an administrator on here, I could click on there and I could delete myself or deactivate myself, and then I can force log myself out, in which case that will then no longer be visible on there. And obviously, if you want to delete an organization, then you have to remove all the devices, remove any sites underneath it, and then you get the ability to be able to go into sort of like organization, and then you can delete this organization. But you'll see that you do need to make sure that there's no administrators, users, license, inventory, or sites allocated to the organization to be able to delete it.
Can I just add one thing, Danny, to people in general that are still listening, because I don't mean the Zyzal support site and the academy and stuff, that has got a lot of Nebula information on it. So obviously during a webinar, Danny's going to answer for you. But if you need sort of self-help, the Nebula section under the support site is very good. Genuinely very good.
Yeah, it is very informative. There's like a Nebula forum as well, where it's a bit of a community, so you can all speak about experiences. People can help you out, potential problems they might have had, and the solutions that we've got. And then Zyzal support team as well are very conscious about any problems that are raised and work effortlessly to sort of get to the bottom of it. So I've got another question as well. Is it possible for you to show what the CCTV aspect of Nebula is? Certainly. So I've actually got a CCTV switch. So if I go back to my my specific one, go to the switch, and then if I go to surveillance, you'll see here straight away, it just gives you an overview. It shows you all the ports and what the PoE draw is, whether or not extended range is set up, and then using LLDP will tell you any specific device names and things like that. Unfortunately, mine isn't set up for that. But if you go to switch and then switch ports, on specific CCTV switching, these options will only be available. So if we go down, so we've got main switch here, CCTV switch here. So it is like a virtual stack, so I can actually tick all my ports on the switch and edit them all. So you can see there I'm editing 6 ports. So what's recently been added? I'll close that because it won't let me do all the surveillance specific stuff as a group. So if I go to edit and then PoE settings. 6. Right. Right, so you got your extended range section here. So you can turn on extended range. Please note though that when you do an extended range, it is dependent on which camera you've got, whether or not you can get over 100 meters or 150 or up to 250 meters, but it will force the modulation down to a 10 meg modulation because it can't do it over 100 meg or a gig. So that's just something to be conscious about. Right, so when you've got a CCTV, so let me use one that's actually working. Right, so on a specific CCTV switch, if you drop down the PoE section at the bottom, so PoE settings, you got whether or not PoE is enabled, whether it's scheduled. So these are some of the older features that were still there. What the PoE priority is. So if it's a critical and you run out of budget, for instance, that device is going to maintain up. So this is all about PoE budgeting. If you exceed your budgeting for whatever reason, then it's going to drop off the low devices, then the medium devices, and will maintain the critical devices. This is quite important because when you've got a camera which is like a PTZ camera, it actually draws more power when it boots up than what it does in operation. So as soon as it turns back on, it might draw more power than it should be doing. But then once it's booted up, it will sustain it at a certain level. So it might drop off one of your low cameras while it's booting up to be able to provide the PoE budget it requires. And then once it's settled down and it's using its operational budget, then the device which has been dropped off will then recover and come back on. You've got the power up mode, so you can actually stipulate whether or not this specific port is going to be 802.3 AT, AF, or sort of BT power. So BT power for the bigger sort of cameras, providing 60 watt per port. The 6 port that I've got is the only one that does BT power at the moment. I'm hoping that that will get increased in the future. And then one of the other good features for the surveillance is the auto PD recovery. So the auto power device recovery. If you enable that, you can either do it by LLDP or ping. So it'll basically run a ping backwards and forwards to whatever IP address you put in. So for instance, I would put in my camera's IP address here. It will ping it. And if it drops any pings or polling count based on this threshold here, so polling interval, that's how often it sends a ping, and the polling count, what do you want it to do? You can have it either just tell you, or you can have it reboot. So you can actually have it automatically reboot the device for so many seconds and so many times. And one important thing is you can actually have it power off for a specific number of seconds, because certain cameras might take 10 or 15 seconds to fully discharge before you actually want to start injecting power back into them. So I hope that answers your questions in regards to the surveillance features on there.
Danny, could you just show somebody, could you go to the help lower left and just show online documents to some people? They just like to see the the PDF releases for each NCC, and this will be, I'll just show them. It's the easiest way of showing them. There you go.
Okay, so this will show you basically quick user guides, start guides, configuration guides, relevant to devices, as well as the control center as well. So you can access all of this straight within Nebula. So again, offering everything that you can have to educate yourself and make your experience as easy as possible.
Thanks, Danny.
No worries. So we've got a newbie question. 3 devices linked to 3 sites. How can I move the devices to a new organization? So obviously you'll need to look at getting the organization set up first. And then obviously whether or not you'll be adding certain devices to it. So you go to site-wide, create a site in the organization, and then you can add specific devices. If you want to move any specific devices, then you go to your inventory, and then you can highlight it, and then you can add 2, and you can move it to an existing site, or you can unregister it, in which case it's going to reset it back to factory default, and then you could potentially take it out of circulation. And you can also register from this point as well. And if you've got quite a number of devices, so I've known someone to put 100 devices in this, you can actually export and import the information into it as well. So being able to, as I say, quickly manage all of your devices and add them. So that's that one. Is there any plans to launch Gateway with built-in DSL support? So Ken, that is something that I have been speaking with headquarters in regards to whether or not we are getting any specific DSL supported. devices. Now, we do have our USG Flex model, which has recently come out, which has an Sfp port onto it. So one of the options that we're actually looking at is whether or not we can get an RJ11 to Sfp converter. So basically, you'll buy an additional module, plug it into the front of the USG Flex device or in the back, depending on what model you get, and then you'd be able to plug your RJ11 cable from your ISP straight into the VPN unit, and then you'll be able to use a PPPoE dialer or a static address. So it is something that we are aware is a requirement for the UK. It can be said that it is a requirement across Europe, so that's something we obviously have to discuss in a bit more detail. But I am hoping that we do get some form of solution potentially in 2021, but nothing has been confirmed as of yet. So Paul's come to me with, is it possible to rename an account that is an admin across multiple sites? So do you mean just as in going into the actual administrators and then actually just changing the specific account details? So for instance, I logged into here, could I change the name? Yes, I can change the name. I can't change the email address. So you would have to obviously register with a different email address and then delete or deactivate that specific one. So what we got? So that sorted yours out. David sorted Neil. Perfect. So Neil, I have a Nebula PoE switch working for wired and APs for a customer on a flat VLAN. They want to move to a VoIP solution. Do I need to introduce a secure gateway in order to create a different VLAN for the voice traffic, or will the VoIP phones still work on a flat VLAN infrastructure? So the VoIP phones will work on a flat VLAN network. You don't have to have a VLAN to run a VoIP system at all. I mean, I could plug one into my network here, and it'll just work. The problem comes is that if you want to separate your traffic and being able to offer quality of service, so making VoIP traffic more important than data traffic, then yes, you would want to separate it using a VLAN. And to be able to do that, you will need a VLAN aware gateway. So whether that be one of ours or a different vendor, it has to be VLAN aware. VLAN is a standard, so if you've got a third-party router that has VLAN specified on it, then we can implement the same VLAN on our system, and it will talk and get all the information from your gateway. So yes, you can do it, but you will need something that's VLAN aware, or the easier option, if it's only a small site and they're not conscious about quality of service, then just stick it on a flat network.
Danny?
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you please demonstrate if you had 3 devices on 3 sites? Could you demonstrate how you would move one of the devices to a new organization?
To a new organization. So yeah. The devices aren't specific to the organization; they're specific to a site. So if you've got an organization here, I mean, I can't show you on this one because I'm only in administrator to one site. So test site test next. I don't know how to do anything. Skip Wi-Fi settings. Go to Nebula dashboard. Now, basically, all I've done is just create a quick organization. I haven't added anything to it. I haven't even added any sort of wireless details or anything like that. So if you go to the inventory list, you'll see that this one is absolutely empty because it's site specific, remember. So I go to Martech test. What you'll need to do is you'll need to unregister the specific device. So if memory serves me right, that one there is thingy. So right, so I'm going to unregister that, and I'm going to copy that information. Yes, I do want to continue. Right, so that now has been unregistered, which means you're now free to go and go to your next organization and register it. So if I put in the information for the MAC address and the information for the serial number, then it tells me what model it is, which is the one that I've just done. I can click OK, and then that device has then been unregistered from one organization and it's been re-registered to a different organization. But bear in mind that when you buy a switch or an access point, they come with a bundled license. That license gets applied when you first register it. So I've registered it to my original Martech. That license is not going to be transferred over to the Martech test. So what you will need to do is at this stage is go to the license management. Msp Portal and license transfer. And then from here, you can go, right, from Martech, I need to specify however many points it needs, move into Martech test, and that will then move across the licensing for that device from one organization to another organization. Right, do we, Oliver's sent one through, do we have any support for VDSL support? So again, that again is the same sort of question I got earlier on in regards to the sort of standard DSL. It is something we are in conversation with, but nothing we have in having the roadmap or any confirmation of that. So Josh come back saying we've had 2 GS1920 V2s factory reset themselves when they have been deployed. Is there something we are doing wrong? It is because it is trying to talk to Nebula, and we've seen it before. When removing from Nebula, I'm not sure when they are registered in they're not registered in Nebula. So I've known this sometimes where potentially the gateway is blocking certain ports. So if you go to help firewall information, it will give you a list of all the full qualified domain names that we use, and obviously the time protocol, what IP addresses they go to, and what specific ports. So the first thing I would do is actually look at whether or not them specific ports are blocked. I actually had this problem once, and I created a batch script that allows me to interrogate from inside a network whether or not a specific port is run. So I created this in PowerShell. Simple, easy, and then all you do is you click on it, and it will actually, well, if you run it with PowerShell, it'll just ask you which port, so you can go 443, and it'll actually check whether or not that specific port is open. And then it'll provide you a little test file, and it'll tell you. So that TCP test on that specific port is true, coming from what address to what address. So again, being able to do that, that's quite a simple thing. So if any of you are interested in that port scan PowerShell, I can always give you that as well. It's just something I batched together when I was in training once. But Josh, if you are experiencing issues with specific devices, then we can always talk directly, and I can sort of help you through it and try and identify potentially where the cause of it is. But yeah, just feel free. You can either email me, daniel.marsh@zeisel.co.uk, or you can feel free to give me a call on the main office number, speak to any of my colleagues, and they'll be able to provide you my mobile number as well. So I've got to admit that was quite a good engaging 10 minutes. Yes, DJ.
I meant that. So Paul Barnes, renaming the account from one org site to reflected across all sites orgs. That email is an admin for.
I meant the renaming the account in one organization site to reflect across all sites and organizations. That email is admin for. I'll tell you what, Paul, what I'll do is I'll give you a shout as soon as we finish this webinar. I'll give you a shout directly, and I'll just clarify exactly what you're after. We'll run through it, and obviously I'll be able to provide you an answer directly. So sort of give me sort of 10 minutes, and we'll do that. That's fine. But other than that, I don't think there's any more questions. Have you got anything else that you want to add, guys? DJ, Nigel?
I don't think so, Danny. No, thanks very much indeed. Yeah.
No. Well, all I can say is obviously thank you for your participation today. Just bear in mind that there is going to be a survey at the end of this, so please fill it in, because it is a chance to qualify for a free training voucher on Nebula. This is a certified training as well, which is going to be conducted on our campus academy. So again, please make sure you do go on the survey. And all I can say is thank you for joining me today. If you've got any questions that you haven't asked, or if I haven't answered correctly, then just reach out to me directly. I'm on LinkedIn, and I will speak to you directly and try and clear up any misunderstandings or issues you may have. So yeah, thank you again for joining us today, and I hope you have a good day and a good weekend. Thank you very much.